Story 1. Home alone, intruder, was messing with me. This happened when I was 13. I lived in a duplex with my dad and brother. It was a 2-bedroom, and I shared a room with my dad, while my older brother had his own room. It was not uncommon for both of them to have plans at night, while I stayed home to play video games, alone. This night was no different. My dad was probably at some bar, and my brother, who knows where he was. I was playing the original Resident Evil on PlayStation, and at around midnight my eyelids were getting too heavy, and I decided to go to bed. I slept with my bedroom door wide open. Now, not one time in the years that we lived in this place did my dad or brother come home by entering through the back sliding glass door. A couple times, my brother didn't have his key for one reason or another, and he knocked on my bedroom window and asked me to let him in. My dad always had his key, and would always come home through the front door. On this night, I heard the back door slide open. It was an old door, and sliding it open wasn't easy. It was also very loud, so I heard it crystal clearly. I lay in bed, wide-eyed, my imagination going crazy. I heard whoever it was walk through the dining room, through the kitchen, and then into the living room. They made no attempt to be quiet. After a brief silent pause, I saw someone walk by my bedroom doorway. This scared the living hell out of me, as you can imagine, and my heart throbbed. Whoever was in my house walked into the bathroom right next to my bedroom and flipped the light on. The light poured into my bedroom, and I was laying there, terrified, completely exposed by the light from the bathroom. Why didn't I shout out for my brother or my dad? Because, like I mentioned earlier, I knew it wasn't them, and there was no one else it could have been that would have made sense. Not a family member, not a friend. I knew it was someone that didn't belong. The person then walked out of the bathroom, left the light on, and went into my brother's room and started making a ton of noise. It sounded like they were searching for something. All I did was lay there, shivering. After a few more minutes, the person walked by my bedroom again. I expected at any moment a stranger would walk into my room, but they didn't. I heard them making noise in the living room, walking around, huffing and puffing. Then they started walking back and forth by my bedroom repeatedly, into the bathroom and back out, over and over. At the time, I was 100% sure they were messing with me for some reason. They knew I was there, whoever they were. I heard the person making noises. By this, and by the huge figure that I saw walking back and forth, I knew it was a man. They continued walking around each room except the one I was in, and then suddenly I heard them walk back through the house, to the back sliding door, open it, and then leave. I lay there in bed, terrified, wondering what the hell just happened. After a while, out of sheer exhaustion, I fell asleep. In the morning, I found that my dad and brother were home. I have asked both of them dozens of times, and they both promise it was not them. Plus again, why the hell would they go through the back door and then leave again through the back door? This was 21 years ago. I'll never know who it was or why they were there. Nothing was missing either. What really makes me wonder to this day, why the hell did they never come into my bedroom? The door was wide open, and they walked by it at least 20 times. Story number 2, a guy living in my living room. I live in a safe country where you don't often hear of break-ins or burglaries. Because of this, people here aren't really careful about taking safety measures in general, from leaving your stuff unattended in public to alarm systems at home. Many properties here have front gates, but they're kind of more for show than anything else and not locked until people go to bed. Something happened to my family about 2 weeks ago that probably changed our view on taking our safety for granted forever. I'm putting this down now because I can finally feel less uncomfortable about putting it down in detail. I guess I need to get it off my chest and to tell people who probably understand how I feel. My dad, mom, sister, and I live together in a semi-detached house. It has a nice wraparound lawn from the front, running through one side of the house and all the way to the back, and a wall with a gate in front. The house itself has a front and back door, which my family properly locks up before we go to bed. The main gate is easily scalable, like that of almost all the houses here. There was some construction work going on in my street, probably pipe replacements and such, so there were lots of workers hanging around from morning to evening. This happens a lot, so we're all used to them. Sometimes, the workers sleep along the street so they can use the time traveling to and fro to rest instead, and also tap the Wi-Fi of neighbors around here. I've heard them talking on the phone late into the night, and their voices travel up to my window quite clearly. But this happens all the time, so I didn't care, happily thinking I was safe in my own house. I was so wrong. Around 9 p.m. one night a couple of weeks ago, I went downstairs to grab a drink. At this point, everyone's upstairs doing their own thing, and the lights would be turned off downstairs. I didn't bother to turn on anything because I knew where everything was, and I was only down there for a minute. To help you visualize a bit, the first floor of the house has an open layout from the kitchen all the way to the living room, with the stairs coming down midway on the right. If you stand in the kitchen, you can see everything straight across the entire first floor, all the way to the front door. My eyes started becoming accustomed to the darkness as I grabbed a bottle of water from the shelf and turned to make my way back upstairs. And as I glanced across the house, I realized something was out of place before it even registered. Then it sank in. There was a silhouette in my living room that wasn't supposed to be there at all. I can't describe the feeling I got. Kind of like the almost chill you get when you touch something really, really hot, and that millisecond of cold before the heat kicks in, and you whip your hand back. Take that, and imagine that cold is pouring over the top of your head and trickling its way down your body. In the darkness of my living room was a figure of a man, hunkered down between the settee and coffee table, almost out of sight. But I could see the narrow, rounded shape of his shoulders and his head coming out from the top of the coffee table. He was motionless, as if waiting or something, and for a few crazy long seconds I was a hair's breadth away from freaking out. I thought I could see his eyes, and I think he was looking at me. Should I scream? Should I run? I raised my bottle shakily to take a pretend sip of water, hoping that he thought I paused to drink and didn't actually notice him. I then forced myself to walk upstairs slowly. If I ran, I think I would have passed out from terror before I could make it to the stairs. Climbing the stairs forced me to turn my back towards the living room, and as I pretended to go upstairs, as if everything were normal, I was more frightened than I ever had been in my life. With every step, it's like pure fear was building up more and more in my stomach. I resisted the urge to bolt and reached the top of my stairs after what had seemed like eternity. I made it to my parents' room and calmly opened the door, shutting it behind me. My legs then gave way, and I collapsed to the floor. My lungs opened up. I didn't realize I wasn't breathing, and I started to gasp for air. My parents faced me at the sound of my fall, and their faces tweeted somehow got it out of my mouth that we had to call the police. Hearing my voice, Dad stood up and demanded to know what was wrong. I told him there was a man downstairs and we needed to call the police. I was properly crying out of fear at this point. Hearing this, Dad got real mad. He helped me up before grabbing the wooden baton he kept under his bed in case of emergencies and leaving the room, leaving Mum and I there, dumbstruck. I heard Dad shout halfway down, thirsted with confusion and worry when they saw me there, gasping for air, and with a probably crazy-ass look in my eyes. I somehow got it out of my mouth that we had to call the police. Hearing my voice, Dad stood up and demanded to know what was wrong. I told him there was a man downstairs and we needed to call the police. I was properly crying out of fear at this point. Hearing this, Dad got real mad. He helped me up before grabbing the wooden baton he kept under his bed in case of emergencies and leaving the room, leaving Mum and I there, dumbstruck. I heard Dad shout halfway down the stairs, and his yell seemed to push me up onto my feet. I don't know why, but my first instinct, despite my fear and complete inability to do anything, was to run to him. Turns out, he made it about halfway down the stairs waving his baton before the guy in the living room bolted, yanking the gate open and climbing over the main gate quick as anything. We called the police, and they came over for a statement, but the intruder had raced off by then. I kept all the lights on that night and didn't sleep, obviously. We filed a police report the very next day, but we honestly didn't have anything on how the guy looked like, so we knew nothing would come of it. The police figured he was a construction worker, but they were reluctant to speculate what his potential intentions were. I guess they didn't want to scare us more than we were doing to ourselves in our own heads. Needless to say, we got motion detector systems after that. Our doors are now locked 24/7, and we keep a light downstairs on throughout the night. I've acquired a new kind of respect for Dad. I also can't go downstairs alone anymore. I keep thinking of what the intruder was waiting to do: rob us, rape, or kill us. I haven't slept well since then, thinking of all the ways that night could have panned out if I didn't spot him. We're moving in August to a condo with security cameras and automatic door locks. Can't wait. Edit. Thanks to everyone for the kind comments. I was trying to make this a good read as well, and it was weird to relive the experience, but it's been some weeks now and I wanted to get this off my chest. I hope that all of you who've experienced some kind of home intrusion are safe. I'm really glad this didn't go as badly as it could have, and I hope everyone who's read this will take care to lock their doors and never be complacent even if they're at home. I know I've learned my lesson. Story 3. A home intruder came into my room one night. So I started reading the posts here, and I realized that my story would fit in well, so here goes. I am a 27-year-old woman, and this happened to me 9 or 10 years ago, when I was a senior in high school. We lived in a pretty large house, but my siblings were all away at college or boarding school, so it was only my parents and I in the house. I am a crazy light sleeper. So when I woke up in the dark and saw my alarm clock flashing 3:11 a.m., I wasn't too surprised. However, I was wide awake, not just groggily stirring in my sleep. I lay there, wondering what had woken me, when I heard very soft footsteps on the stairs outside my bedroom. The door to my room was parallel to the left side of the bed, and I happened to be laying with my back to the door. When the footsteps approached my door, I thought it must be one of my parents, checking on me for some reason. Then the doorknob was turned, so slowly. Still, I thought they were just trying not to wake me. The door began to open, again, slowly and carefully. It made a creaking noise no matter how slowly it was opened, so the person finally just shoved it the rest of the way to silence the creak. Still, my naive brain thought it was one of my parents, until they clicked on a flashlight. I froze. Terror flooded me, and I remember that I instantly broke out in sweat. They were behind me, and I was facing away, so they couldn't see my eyes wide open as they shone the beam straight on me. I always used to think that if something like that ever happened, I would be such a badass, and I would whip out of bed and punch them, attack them, shout, scream, do something. But I could do nothing at all. All I could do was try to keep my breathing deep and even, despite the pounding of my heart, so that the intruder wouldn't know I was awake. After about 10 seconds, they finally moved the light away. I prayed and begged and bartered with anything that would listen to me as the intruder walked around my room, looking at my things. I could vaguely see their shape, large and bulky, like they were wearing 2 coats. They had a baseball cap on. They didn't shine the flashlight on me again, and after a few minutes, which felt like an eternity, they left my room. I could still hear them, though, walking around the rest of the second floor through my siblings' empty bedrooms. I was still sweating, still frozen in terror, not knowing what to do. I wanted to grab my phone and call my dad, sleeping downstairs. I wanted to call our landline so that the phone would ring and wake my parents up. I wanted to call the police. I wanted to get up and run from my room. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't do any of those things. I was afraid that they would hear me, and I didn't know if they had a weapon and would try to hurt me or my parents. I wouldn't wish such helpless terror on my worst enemy. I don't know how, but I must have passed out from fear, or the adrenaline wore off, and I fell asleep somehow, because the next thing I knew, it was 6 a.m., and I could hear my parents downstairs. I ran downstairs, and as calmly as I could, I asked them if one of them had been in my room last night. Their faces went blank, and they said no. They hadn't. That was the last straw. I broke down in sobs and told them, then someone was in my room last night. Even as I type this, my hands have begun shaking and I've teared up. The police were called, even though there was little they could do at that point. Apparently, when my parents woke up, all of the doors to the outside were standing wide open, and there was a duffel bag at the bottom of the stairs. All that was inside was a coil of nylon rope and an empty USB flash drive. I don't want to think about what it was for. The intruder hadn't taken anything, and we have no idea why they left in what appeared to be a hurry. It took me about a week to be able to sleep in my own room, a sanctuary which felt violated and frightening to me now. I carry pepper spray, sleep with a machete next to my bed, and double-check my locks every night. Hopefully this will never happen again, but if it does, Hopefully, I won't freeze. It's been 10 years, and my most common nightmare is that someone is in my room, standing in the shadows, watching me